So sorry, I am not the bearded lady in The Greatest Showman, at least not in appearance. But there are some similarities to that show, that musical, that movie. I guess it was a box office movie. So I watched it when it came out, which was, I think, like 2016. So I'm not going to have everything right, but I do want to tell you this is me. If you've watched that video, that movie, whatever it's called, there were some challenges, and it was supposedly a video or a movie about P.T. Barnum of Barnum and Bailey Circuses, his life story and how he became famous and got the circus started and all that. And there were a lot of challenges, but he hired a lot of different type of people that were kind of the outcast or lower levels of society, and then they had to come up and prove to the bourgeoisie, or whatever they're called, the debutantes. And I've dealt with all those in my life. My career as a photographer, I was basically a photographer to the rich and famous as far as Texas circles go, which means the politicians and their wealthy donors. They were all lovely people, wonderful people, always treated me very well. But it was a different standard of living than I was living. Oops, I'm shaking the camera, so better not lean against the table too much and my slippers come off. But I like to keep them on in case the dog gets over here, because she'll stretch out her claws and then they'll go across my toes, and I don't like that in the video, making faces. But anyway, for some time I've been thinking I needed to go a little bit deeper into my past, be a little more transparent as to why I'm on YouTube, and recently why I like the school platform more than any social media platform to date. That doesn't mean a better one won't come out, but I think this one will probably reign supreme for quite some time. I'll talk about that in a little bit if I remember to come back to it. I have shared my health journey multiple times on this channel. And anybody that's known me for over the last 10 years is well aware that I'm a stroke survivor, that I probably should have died, and that the most frequent comment I got when I would run into people at these events I was photographing was, "God's not finished with you yet, or you wouldn't still be here," because that's how close I was to not being here. It was a close enough call that everybody around me suspected I would be gone. And then when I'm not, they're like, "Oh, okay, well, God has a plan for you." And I kept saying, "Well, I wish he would tell me what it is, so I could know it." And I think he has, and I think it's just taken me a long time to comprehend my part in it. But I've always had a tendency, and I think I got this from my father. I always say he wants to help everybody. In fact, he's coming down here in a couple days because he wants to help a neighbor get to see her sister that lives about 2 hours from here. So he's offered to drive her down. We'll meet the brother-in-law near the interstate. The brother-in-law will take her to see her sister. He'll come stay with me. And I'm thinking, yeah, at 87, I think he's 87, he maybe shouldn't be on an 8 or 9 or 10-hour drive down Interstate 95. But he always has this desire to help. And I think when I look back over my life, I think that is one of my stronger qualities, which I've always interpreted as wanting to be a mentor to someone. I've had lots of mentors. And there have been a few people I have mentored, not necessarily called their mentor, but I took a lot of, people said I like to collect strays when I was renting out rooms at my house. So it started, and this was, I sold the house in 2021. So that's been, 4 years ago? And then I guess the last tenant I had was a convicted felon. But I had several throughout the term, only to come to find out that their probation requirements or parole, whatever they were on, probation or parole, always required that they could not associate with other felons. So I can only have one at a time, which made it interesting when you're renting up to 3 other rooms. I didn't generally ask if they were a felon, but it came. But people that knew me, and I think I had, I don't know if I'm not sure about the status 1. It may have been a misdemeanor, but anyway, the people that knew me are like, well, you always take in the strays and you help them out and you're a good friend and you're a good landlord. And you kind of get them back on a acceptable path in society. I don't want to say the path they were on was wrong. They made a mistake, That doesn't mean they're a bad person. And that's even when I would arrest somebody and I would cause them to become a felon or a misdemeanor, I didn't think they were a bad person. And whether they became that in my county was not up to me. It's never up to the policeman. The policeman observes and then they take it to court and then the judge decides. And in my county, the judge was extremely lax. He had grown up there. He hunted with everybody and fished with them, and they country club, drinking buddies, So if their son or daughter came in, oh yeah, I hunt with your dad, I fish with your dad, let's just take this under advisement. So I had a very low conviction record, which was okay because I wasn't there to ruin anybody's life. I was just there to help the others stay safe. And sometimes you have to stop something in order to keep somebody else safe. So we are going way back in the archives now, and I'm going to go even further back. Because the way I became a police officer was I was a park ranger that had law enforcement authority. So I had the same training as a local, or not necessarily a state police officer. They put them through a pretty stringent academy. Even though I was a state employee and I had police authority, I was not a state police officer, which is a distinction. I had authority on state lands that were owned by the parks, Department of Conservation and Recreation. I don't know, it changed names a couple times. Division of State Parks, I think, is the easiest. The states like to spend money renaming things just so they can get new patches and new logos on their letterhead and new stickers on the vehicles. But anyway, so I don't really even remember what the name of the department I was under, which also had the forestry division under it. And one park I was in was a little tiny state park in the middle of a great big state forest. And technically my authority was on those lands also, but they also had forest rangers, so they didn't like the park ranger coming over doing too much. So I do have a strong law enforcement background, and because of that, I did security for several companies. The most famous was the Texas Rangers baseball team, which they called the Texas Rangers Baseball Club when they answered the phone. I guess that's the legal name of the corporation that's part of Major League Baseball. We get things so complicated in the United States. It's a corporation that has one name and it's a company under that has another, and then they go by something else. And same with the government, department, division, park, they all. So it's hard to keep all this stuff straight, but that's kind of like how our health system is also. But I had always wanted to be a park ranger. I was a Eagle Scout. I became an Eagle Scout right before my 18th birthday. There's somebody jogging by. I got to have the window open for enough light in here, but that's distracting as people drive by, walk their dogs. There's a very elderly man that rides his bicycle around the circle frequently. I'm thinking, well, good for you. You don't really look fit. Fortunately, he has his shirt on, so I don't really know what he looks like, but the way he rides the bicycle, I'm glad he can still do it because I'm not a spring chicken. I'm 60, so a lot of people say, well, that's still young, and it is. I agree with that. I may be at the midpoint of my life. I may be past the midpoint of my life. Who knows? I did have that near-death experience, so it really changed my way of thinking. Because as a police officer, you kind of almost have to have the thought process that you're invincible. Otherwise, you wouldn't go do a lot of those things. You can die. You will die. You just hope it's not tonight on this call. So you go in there with you're in charge, you're going to make it happen, you're going to go home safe. And that was always my thought. I'm going to be the one going home safely tonight. And I hope everyone else does too. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I will if it's the difference between me going home safely or them going home safely. And there's no other option. So how does all that play into me being a pet sitter and talking about carnivore and getting healthy? Well, life is a series of steps that get you to where you want to be. And I don't know that any of us are actually where we want to be, but I have taken these courses along the way, and I watch people. I'm in multiple communities on the school platform. In fact, I think I'm in 3 for how to build YouTube and maybe 4 for carnivore and healthy meat-based eating. I think one's called Primal Clarity and one's called Art of Optimal Living, and the other's How to Carnivore. So, I don't have to make videos about how to carnivore because there's somebody already doing that. I don't need to make videos about a lot like how to cook carnivore because there's a ketogenic woman that has all kinds of recipes on her YouTube channel. And then one of the communities I'm in, and I may say the lady's name wrong because I really don't concentrate on it, but it's Alexandra. She's actually American, but she's married to a Finnish person, a person from Finland. I guess they're called Finnish because she says, in Finnish, it says so that at least Finnish is the language. And she lives in Finland, I think has 3 children. I think they're all girls. But one of her videos came across my feed the other day, and it was very pointed. I thought she was talking straight to me, and that's how I want my videos to be. I want you to think I'm talking straight to you, but this one, not so much. This is very different than any video I've ever published prior. There goes somebody, 2 people walking, 2 dogs that I don't recognize. One of them's off a leash, that's a no-no. But anyway, there's the policeman coming out. Put your dog on a leash so mine doesn't have to chase it. Well, mine's on a leash, so then it just pulls me along if it wants to go running. But anyway, Alexandra's video was she's successful on YouTube, like 50,000 subscribers. She's successful in her off YouTube life, which is the goal. That's kind of everybody's goal, is to be well-rounded, to be successful in everything they do. And looking back, which I'm going to get to that, I'm going to get to Dr. Hardy in just a minute, but let me stick with Alexandra, I think is how you say it. Her video was, oh, there's the man on the bicycle. Her video was, it started out, in my career as a YouTube coach, I have always said, just start. And that is true. If you want to build a YouTube channel, you need to start. But it might be bad advice. So I thought, it can be true, but it can be bad at the same time. Good point, young lady. I need to think about that more often, We all want to speak the truth, but the truth may not be the best advice for you at this moment. So she said, it is true that if you want to build a YouTube channel, that you need to start, Anything you want to do, you need to start. But she said, but you need to research before you press record. And she said, and I don't mean about how to build a channel. You need to research yourself. And I thought, isn't that what I've been doing for like the last 40 years? There's been a lot of tangents, detours, speed bumps, dead ends, and things to get me where I'm at today. It definitely has not been a straight line. And I brought up Dr. Hardy earlier, and I'm going to jump to him now. In his book, The Gap and the Gain, which I just started to re-listen to, I have like 20 copies because I bought them to become part of the course. You could either buy X amount of books or pay a fee, and I think buying the books was cheaper. And I still have them. I need to give them out. So maybe at one of the get-togethers, the meetups, I will give away these books as door prizes in the future. I think they're in storage up near my dad's house at the moment. But anyway, the concept of that is if you set a goal and you're looking at the goal, you're always seeing the gap between you and the goal. But if you stop, say your goal is to lose 40 pounds. Okay, so let's see, we'll pick a random number. 240 is what you weigh, 200 is your goal. You've been at it a month or two and you've lost 10 pounds. So you're looking like, well, crap, I still got 30 pounds to go. I'm never going to make it. That's one way to look at it. Or you can turn around and see where you were and say, oh, I've lost 10 pounds. I'm making progress. That's really good. So in my life, with speed bumps, detours, tangents, roadblocks, we're going to look back and say, it hasn't been a bad life. I'm not doing bad. I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had, as you can tell by looking at me, I've always had plenty of food to eat. It may have packed on the pounds, so it may not have been the highest quality or the best for me, but I've never starved. And, sometimes people think, well, I just won't eat and I'll lose weight. And that is true until it's not. That is an example of something that is true, but may not be the best advice. Yes, look at the TV show Survivor. They all lose weight because they're not eating enough. They don't die, but that's the ultimate result of not eating enough, is if you go along with me, it's anorexia, bulimia, whatever the one is, where you look in the mirror and you think you're fat, so you eat and then you either throw it up or you don't eat. I don't know which one's which, but they're both bad. And if you have them or have had them, you know they're bad. It's kind of a way that you're not seeing reality. And when I owned a tanning salon, rewind way back, when I was leaving the police department, I actually had written the owner a ticket at one point, but I think I'd also maybe gone in and tanned once or twice, excuse me. Anyway, she wanted to sell it and I wanted another business since I was leaving the police department. So I bought it from her. And then I found out there's people that can be as brown as that, whatever that is behind me. And they come in, I'm just not tan. I need to get darker. You got any lotion that'll make me darker? Like, if you're any darker, somebody would plant a tree in you because you look like the dirt. But I think that's kind of how eating disorders work. You are skin and bones and you think you're fat. And so sometimes I think I'm not successful. I think I'm not happy. And this is what Alexa was bringing up, that you have to research yourself before you're able to share, before you're able to help somebody else. And that's what they say, an empty cup can't fill up somebody else, another cup. So an empty vessel can't give into another vessel because you don't have anything to give if there's nothing there. So all along my life, I hate to use the word goal-driven, but I have been purpose-driven. Let's say that, purpose-driven, because I have kind of always known what I wanted to do, and I did things that I thought would get me there. That would be taking a job, starting a business. And no, the tanning salon was not the first business I ever owned. In fact, I probably owned another one at the same time I bought that. I did network marketing or multi-level marketing, whatever they call it, direct sales for 15, 20 years in Virginia and in Texas. Two different organizations, well, the same parent organization, but under different lines of sponsorship. Oh, and then I did a third one after the stroke. I did Herbalife, mainly meal replacement shakes, which were basically protein. And as I've come to find out, a lot of carbohydrates. As I've looked back, I've thought about, they were pretty good and I lost a lot of weight. I was also working out like 3 hours a day. So that's why I don't talk about working out a lot right now, because almost anything you hear on the internet has a kernel or a grain of truth in it. Anything you've been taught about nutrition or food or health at this point has a kernel of truth in it. And back to what Alexa said, just because it's the truth or there's a kernel of truth does not mean it's the best advice for you at this moment in time. It may have been at one point in time, it may be at a point in time in the future, but maybe at this point in time, it is not. So ultimately, we'll get up to the recent past. I've kind of become I've tended to more believe in the minimalist philosophy. So I sold my house. I got rid of a lot of stuff, kept a little too much, still had to have a storage room. Well, I had a storage room because I rented a Airbnb when I sold my house, so I couldn't take much with me, but I knew I'd be going back into apartments. So yes, I saved furniture, appliances, dishes, that kind of stuff. Then when I moved from the apartment, I think I got a 14-month lease. And I was still working at the police department in Fort Worth as a civilian. But I'm watching the minimalist, I'm reading books on minimalism and essentialism and how doing less is more. And I signed up for at least two courses at the time with Dr. Hardy. One was the first 6 months of the year I was in, then the whole year the next year. That's why I bought the books, whatever book he was publishing at that time. That's kind of a rigged system too. And to get on the New York Times bestseller list, you almost have to pre-sell books before they're published. Because it's like YouTube and social media, it's all about the numbers. And bigger numbers get you more publicity, which gets you bigger numbers, which gets you more publicity, which gets you bigger numbers. That's why subscribers and likes and comments are stressed on platforms like YouTube, and that's one thing I like about school, so let's go down that now. Other social medias, in fact, all of them, except school, work off of advertising dollars. And in school, to set up a community, it used to be close to $99 a month that you, as the owner, paid, and then you could charge people to join, or you could do it for free, whatever. But anyway, school was making their money from the people on the platform. And the people on the platform were making money because they gave a good product. And people were willing to pay for it, or people weren't, so they joined a free group. But, there's no doom scrolling. You don't go on there to post a comment and you see an ad about some shipwreck or, a reel or a whatever TikTok thing. Those little short things that grab your attention and say, hey, look at me, look at me. Oh, and you should buy this supplement. You should buy, you get on Facebook to see your friends, what they ate for dinner. Oh, they had to go to the bathroom, That was the time you posted all that stuff. But school doesn't have any of that. School only, I recently started a Carnivore Without the Crazy community. And you can go there, and it's just about carnivore. In fact, I may add a tab for off topic. But I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to let it go for about a month. And I'm thinking what's going to happen. And I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning today with this thought. You get a lot of good thoughts early in the morning, but I'm usually asleep then. So I got up and got to work. That's why this video is getting produced. It won't go up till next week when Dad's here, but that'll have one ahead, so I don't have to worry about it while he's here. But it was that I probably should get off of Facebook and Instagram. And I don't mean delete the account. I mean just don't get on them. They'll still be there, and if I want to get on them, I can. And I should probably open an additional school account. Oh, and by the way, they've dropped the owner's fee to $9 a month, which, almost anybody can afford $9 a month, even a frugal person like me that lives rent-free most of the year in other people's houses because I am frugal and a minimalist, and I get nice stuff, and I got rid of most of my stuff. Generally nice stuff. This house is nice. You can tell by the thing behind me and my curtains in the background to keep things kind of consistent. But that new community, I don't know what I'll call it yet, and I'm going to wait till probably October. I'll be back in Virginia by then. I'll be at Williamsburg at a timeshare. Oh, and then I've accepted a 2-week house sit, 14, 15 days, I think, at Myrtle Beach. for, I think it's the 10th to the 25th. So I guess it is 14 nights, 15 days of October. And I'm learning that I need at least a couple of weeks at places so I can get settled, I can get my equipment set up, I can make videos, and not be running around like a chicken with my head cut off, which I was when I was working full-time. Because I need to prioritize my health, and I'm still not really telling you this is me, and that's why I'm on this phone making it, because the GoPro would have probably shut off by now. But I started listening to the soundtrack from The Greatest Showman again. And then I got into the featurettes and the behind the scenes stories. And there's a lot on YouTube. You can learn a lot on YouTube. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into these fantastic musicals that you don't know about, like getting it greenlit by the production company. So the story is, it took them about 6 months to get all the confirmed actors together to be able to come to New York on the same day. Then they had to hire a chorus and musicians. So, and the executives, I think it was Fox, they said, I guess it's Fox Multimedia, not the Fox News channel, but the Fox that owns movie studios. Their executives were going to be there. And apparently it's like a rehearsal, not a dress rehearsal, but where the singers sing their parts and then you speak the parts, and you basically show these people what the movie will be before they decide to invest in it. So Hugh Jackman was coming in from, I guess, Australia. People were coming in from all over to sing the part they'd been offered if it became a movie. And I guess that's why they get paid a lot of money, because they don't know if it's going to be a movie or not, but they've still got to get to New York. They've got to learn the parts. They've got to sing the songs. And the interesting thing is, a year before this, they had to have these songs demoed. And so they asked a guy in LA named Jeremy Jordan, who apparently was in a series called Supergirl. And I've had to look all this up since I said, who is that kid singing for Hugh Jackman? I didn't know who he was, but apparently he's very famous and he's a very good singer. And he's not as much of a kid as I thought. He's only 20 years younger than me, so he's 40 now. And of course, this was 10 years ago, so he's about 30. So I got it right. Usually 20 to 30 is a kid to me if I don't know who they are or their name. Or just in general, because that's like half my age. But anyway, he had been approached to do the demos for all of Hugh Jackman's songs. And why they have demos before they know it's going to be a movie, I don't know, but I'm just telling you the story as I figured it out after watching this. And these videos are somewhat emotional because as a photographer, I know what it's like to be creative, to let your talent make your money. And you never know if the buyer, the client, is going to be happy or not. So you're kind of always on edge. Well, am I good enough? Did I do it right? Do they want me back? Which is always the goal, is to please them enough that you can go back and do another event for them. So anyway, he was busy filming Supergirl. I'd never watched that. And everybody was coming to New York for this thing. So they had not cast Zac Efron yet as Philip. And maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, probably 3 weeks, I think he said. Because then there's another video about him telling the story, the Jeremy Jordan guy telling the story about how he saved The Greatest Showman. And there is a point to this, and it applies to me, so bear with me. The producer had reached out and said, "Oh, we got this part we haven't filled yet. It might work for you." It was I hate to use the word understudy, but it wasn't the lead character. there was P.T. Barnum, and then there was his like assistant named Philip. They're like, it's, Philip, and he sings 2 or 3 songs, and you sing songs, so maybe you'd be a good fit. You'll have to go back and watch his video telling about it, as he's kind of comical too. And I'm not going to try to tell the jokes because they're his jokes, not mine. But anyway, they said, we would consider you for that. So he learns those songs, and they're like, oh, and can you come to New York and sing them? But we don't have money to pay for you to get here. He's like, oh yeah. I mean, he's a TV star, he's a movie star. He was on Broadway, I think. So he's got money. He says, so I take my own money and I buy a ticket 3 weeks in advance to go from LA to New York. And then a week in advance, I get this horrific sinus infection. And, I'm not going to be, and it loses his voice. He said, well, I'm not going to be able to sing, but he got a prednisone or something about 3 days in advance. He's like, I'm trying to heal this faster than God intended, so hopefully I'll have a voice by the time I get there. And he sits down on the plane, and the producer texts him because the producer had gotten a call from Hugh Jackman. Is that his name? Jackman? Anyway, the main dude. That he had to have an emergency surgery to remove a skin cancer tumor out of his nose, and had 80 stitches. I think it's on this side. Maybe it shows a scar. Maybe, no, this side, because it would be different. Video's always kind of backwards when you're looking at it. But anyway, he had 80 stitches in his nose, and his doctor said, you can go to New York, but you cannot sing, or you might bust all the stitches out. So the producer had told him, who did you tell that to? Don't tell anybody, because nobody's coming to New York to not hear you sing, to hear you not sing. So don't tell anybody, let me handle it. So he texts Jeremy, who's getting on the plane that he bought the ticket for to go to New York, with a sinus infection and like half of his voice, and tells him, well, you did the demos for Hugh's part, and Hugh can't sing today because of an emergency surgery. He's going to be here and he's going to act out the part. But we need you to sing his part and sing the part for Philip. And he hadn't told him he has a sinus infection. He's like, okay, perfect, I'll do it. And then as the video goes on, it's really about this last song, what's the name of it? It'll come to me. Maybe I need to open the computer. Anyway, doesn't matter what the name of the song is, but it's like the 11th hour song in the movie where it all comes together and everybody is triumphant. So Jeremy starts it out, and in his video, he said, I didn't do very good on Philip's song because it had high notes and my voice was very fatigued by this point in time, but I'm thinking, oh, it'll be my redemption on this it's not called One More Time. From Now On. Oh yeah, that's From Now On. And it's a very powerful song, and I almost got emotional watching this video because you knew things had changed, and that was a good movie. So I'm glad Jeremy did the stand-in, and Hugh's standing there beside him. Well, not beside him, really, a little kind of close, standing up when Jeremy's singing. And hold on. And he starts soft, but he was saying, this will be my redemption from the Philip song where I didn't hit the high notes and it was just like air coming out, because this one starts off low and it builds, and he started off very low. And I noticed when I was listening to the soundtrack, when I was in the car on the beach with the headphones, I couldn't hear the beginning of whatever I just said, From Now On. I'm like, is it playing? But even in the movie, Hugh Jackman started very soft, and then it builds to a crescendo. And then you get to the point, from now on. I don't want to sing, I don't want to get a copyright thing, and you don't want to hear me sing, but anyway, Hugh starts singing, and you can tell, he's like, this is my movie, this is my song, I'm going to do it, to hell with the stitches, let them pop out, and then there's this, they get through it, and there's this deafening applause, and of course, the movie went on to be the best musical in the last decade, probably, that I've seen anyway. There may have been more. But there aren't that many musicals with the actors actually singing in it. So you not only have to act, but you have to sing. And then, of course, it has the This Is Me, which I picked that screenshot for this video to kind of talk about me. But how does all this apply to me? Well, maybe I'm the Jeremy Jordan. Oh, and then in his video, he said, I tried to get out of there as quick as I could, but I heard as I was running out the door as fast as I could, because I didn't get my redemption, Hugh stepped in, and Jeremy very graciously just blended back into the chorus that was backing him up. Still carried on, and I thought, that's really cool. Even before I knew the story, I'm like, oh, that guy really did a good job. He was asked to fill in, and then what the main guy does, he just goes and blends into the background. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us just blend into the background because we don't want to say, this is me, this is my time. And I wanted my redemption, but obviously Hugh was cast into the part. But what he heard as he was trying to rush out was that Hugh had talked to Zac Efron to fill the Philip part. So he's like, I'm not even going to get Philip, and I about killed my throat to try to do that. So that would have been his dead end or roadblock. So he went back. He had taken a day off from Supergirl to come to fly to New York at his own expense to do this, and ended up saving Greatest Showman, which turned out to be phenomenal. So hopefully the producer has paid him back for his time and his ticket. But when you make that kind of money, as I'm sure he does, I don't know what his net worth is. He makes a lot more than I do. He could probably afford it and didn't care that he paid his own way. I mean, he wouldn't have spent the money if he didn't want to do it. And I kind of feel the same way. I started this community. I'm going to pay for the other community because I want to do it. I want to be able to do like Jeremy and help somebody shine. It doesn't have to be me. I don't need to get the glory. He didn't get the glory. It's taking 10 years to find the story. And then there's the bearded lady that's in the picture, I saw I could rent the movie for $3.99 on YouTube, so I may watch that tonight. Maybe I should have before I made this video, just so I could remember. But what's the lady's name? Thea something is the lady that sings it. And wonderful voice, but very large lady, and they put a full beard on her and all that. And she was working like in a dungeon, ironing sheets or something for the rich class. I'm sure this was in London, or maybe it was America. I don't know where P.T. Barnum started, but I know when P.T. Barnum, Hugh Jackman acting as P.T. Barnum in the movie found her, it was made out to look like she was like hidden from public view. And in my health search, I listened to a video, I think maybe it was a Zoom call with Amy Berger, keto, low-carb nutritionist, that said that's actually a symptom of insulin resistance is when women get facial hair. And I don't remember all the mechanics, but, I thought, oh, well, and she even said, they used to put them as sideshow freaks in the circuses. And I thought about this movie. Yes, so maybe it was good that the actress was bigger because I hate to use the word insulin resistance. Metabolic syndrome is more important. No, not important. You are more likely to have metabolic syndrome if you are overweight or obese, because it is a combination of different things like hypertension, visceral adiposity, which means you're fat around the middle, high triglycerides, low HDL, and I never remember the fifth one, but you have to have 3 of them in order to be classified as metabolic syndrome. Insulin resistance is the word I've heard is not a pathology. And we all talk about it like it is a disease, but it actually is something your body does to protect you when you're shoving too much sugar down all the time. Your cells are supposed to be blocking the insulin because otherwise they'll get too big, too fat and explode if they absorb it all. So that's why fat cells have to turn the response to insulin off because insulin doesn't know they're full. So it's kind of like when you say, whoa, at Thanksgiving, I can't eat anymore. I'm going to explode. That's how your fat cells feel. And people call that insulin resistance. It's really a pathological response to you trying to kill yourself. Not with a gun, not with a pill, not by slitting your wrist, but by shoving stuff down your throat you probably shouldn't be eating all that of. So it's taken 40 minutes to tell you what I've been mulling over for 10 years, and that's that I really want to be able to support others going through a health journey. I want to be more available, more transparent, more compassionate, I guess, because that's not necessarily one of my strong points. And what's my collar look like? And honestly, I think I've lost enough weight that I can get a new set of shirts because these are kind of hanging on me now. I do have a set of black ones, but in the summer it's a little too hot to wear black. But they would. That was another thing Alexa brought up on her video. She was talking about a client of hers that she was helping to improve the client's YouTube channel. And she said, when you first hired me, you had a very feminine vibe on your channel. You had pretty pinks and bright colors and all that. And now I get reds and yellows, and it's almost like a masculine feeling. So what happened? What changed? I don't remember telling. So, well, you told me to put bright colors on my thumbnails. She said, no. That's not what I said. I said you need contrast. If you're wearing a pink shirt, don't have a pink background. So I'm wearing a blue shirt with a blue background, but at least I have the brown table or whatever, china closet, buffet, whatever it is, in between. So you do have to be careful in a venue like this, a YouTube channel, because you can say things that can be easily misunderstood, and then people go take it like it's the gospel and implement it, and it ends up hurting them. That's another benefit of school is you can interact. You can have, they're launching a live video thing, which is going to work like Zoom or Google Meet, where you can be face-to-face with somebody or a group of somebody's. And then you say, wait a minute, you mean I'm supposed to put red and yellow in my thumbnails? And then you can say, no, that's not what I said. Whereas Rome will go, no, no, that's not what I'm saying. So I love Jim Rohn, and I don't like these AI impressions of him because they don't get the no, yes. That's what he had a unique speaking pattern, and you knew it was him, and you knew you could trust it. And that's another thing. You need to trust the person that's telling you that they have your best interest in mind. And I can't just say that, I have to prove it to you. And I can prove it to you easier in these school communities, which there will be a link in the description. So maybe I'm a slow learner. Maybe it's taken me 10 years to figure out who I am and what I want to do. And I've had to go through all these jobs and businesses and house sitting and moves and all that stuff to figure it out. Or maybe I was just waiting for the right technology to come along to make it easier. I guess we'll never know because it all happened at the same time. But I guess if I hadn't been pursuing who I am and what I want to do, I wouldn't have been looking for those. I wouldn't have seen those new technologies coming. And I was trying to think of how I got started with school, and it was a year or two ago when somebody, I think it was through Dr. Chafee, actually, I met him in Denver in February of 2023, And somewhere in the interim, an associate of his in Australia launched a school community and called it How to Carnivore, and then did a 30-day challenge, and I was invited to join that. I think it was $48 a month. It was $48 a month. I don't have to think, it was. So I stayed like 2 or 3 months and said, well, I don't need this group. Then I got off of school, and then I found a guy who was good at helping people build their YouTube presence, and he offered a free group on school, so I got back on school. And then I found out that the associate in Australia had started a free group called How to Carnivore. So I joined that. And because he's not actively involved, and Dr. Chafee doesn't come on and do Zoom talks, Q&A kind of things, no medical advice, just conversations. It has 700 members, and there's maybe 10 or 20 that are active. So it's probably been good. I've been on the platform for a year or more, maybe 2, I don't know for sure, before I'm trying to run a community, because now I know how to add value. Even though it's a free community, you still have to add value. And YouTube is always going to be my free community, air quotes, because I keep hearing somebody say, information is free these days, so you have to give value or nobody will listen. And whether this video has any value or not, I don't know. I'm just trying to say that I've hit a point where from now on, this is me. I'll take the 2 songs thinking about from now on, things are changing. They've always been changing for the better, but this is going to be the line in the sand where you can really say, at this moment, from now on, Chip, carnivore-ish Chip, carnivore without the crazy Chip. Chip, the mentor, Chip, the coach, really defined his role and moved forward. And I hope you'll join me in one or both of the communities. I think the mentoring coaching one will probably have a fee with it. So if you want a free community, join the Carnivore Without the Crazy, which is currently linked in the description. And I'll shut this off because probably nobody's still watching anyway. It's going to take a while to load up. I'm glad I'm pre-recording it. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great day.